I get a lot of requests to update storylines that we've covered a number of times. Today, this is one of those storylines. What happened to Lawnmower Man? He was the dude about 8th Avenue Northwest and Northwest Market Street, I think it was, in maybe 50th in Ballard neighborhood of Seattle. He had a whole bunch of lawnmowers on the sidewalk. He kind of fixed them up, kind of worked on them, played some really loud music, played some, was working on tools, kept the neighbors up till all hours. Everybody knew who Lawnmower Man was. And he rocked a neighborhood. Let's be honest. What happened to him? We're going to find out. Let's jump on in. Let's see what the dealio is. Where did Lawnmower Man go? You're only going to find that here on News for Reasonable People. You knew you had a reason to tune in, right? Update to Lawnmower Man who terrorized Ballard neighborhoods. That's probably a pretty accurate portrayal. 11 months ago, the so-called Lawnmower Man, Charles Woodward, was terrorizing Ballard neighborhoods. Ear-splitting machinery. Can't you hear that? Ugh. Round-the-clock music and yard equipment as his makeshift camp spilled onto the sidewalk. He had like 3 big vehicles, 2 wooden sheds packed with lawnmowers that littered the landscape. Despite neighbors' repeated pleas to city leaders for help and shelter placement for Woodward, they were met by inaction. Locals around 8th Avenue Northwest, Northwest 49th Street, I was close, were ignored by Seattle's homeless outreach team, the mayor's office, and the office of their councilman, Dan Strauss. Well, all of those entities have just been kind of overrun with craziness and, taking on one dude, I'm not making excuses for him, but there was a lot of Lawnmower Mans running around out there, until the city kind of started to really crack down on, maybe we can't have just these homeless people just living wherever the F they want. Now an update from the Dory Monson show in Cairo. Woodward is off the streets after getting support and finding a job through a nonprofit staffing from Uplift Northwest and We Heart Seattle. Covered We Heart Seattle and what they do for the community many, many times. They are what I call vigilante garbage picker-uppers. Now, that's not a real term, but at times they have not been sanctioned by the city, and the city is like, you can't pick up garbage. And let's see what We Heart Seattle. If you go to their page, it's literally We Heart Seattle. You can donate right there. They run off of donations. So far, they have picked up 677,200 pounds of trash from parks and shared spaces throughout the Seattle area. We're working on 750,000 pounds that citizens have gone out that are part of this group and just done on their own. And at times, the city has said, you can't do that. You're not sanctioned. I say, keep going, do your thing. This is what it takes, right? 134 people have been helped off the streets by We Heart Seattle. Okay. And this is a non-governmental entity. So how many hundreds of millions of dollars do we spend battling homelessness? And yet somebody who's not sanctioned, who isn't spending taxpayer money, they get action like this. That's why we're reading the story, right? Not to say that Lawnmower Man's going to be, he's not going to be in the up and up the rest of his life. We don't know. Oftentimes it takes multiple times for somebody who's got mental problems or dependency issues. And I don't think Lawnmower Man had dependency issues. It didn't seem like it. I think he just more had, some stuff going on up top that didn't allow him to make great decisions. So our team just managed to crack his code, so to speak. We Heart Seattle founder Andrea told Dory, we came up with a solution. We're not very clinical. We just treated him like the adult human being we knew him to be. Interesting. But to be fair, Lawnmower Man had the ability to make a decision to go in the right direction. Whereas I think a lot of other people are so far gone due to drugs or not being on their medication, or they've got mental issues that don't allow them to be in a space where they can make that positive choice. And that's where I think society has a obligation at some point in there to say, hey, no, you can't live on the streets. This is a no-go. Once they discovered that Woodward already had connections with Uplift Northwest, formerly the Millionaires Club, and then he had a driver's license, We Heart Seattle offered him a driving job on the spot. And I knew that he was driving for them. What we offered him worked for him, and that worked for us, Suarez told Dory's listeners Tuesday. Once he got back on his feet, she said, Woodward opted to return to his family, who welcomed his arrival in Arizona. All right. He's going back to his support group. He's going back to his support system. That is what so many of these people need. But they don't have the ability to get from point A to point B because they're so mired down in the lifestyle of living on the streets that these cities have allowed them to do and to live. And you not just allow them, but enable them with free needles, free tents. I mean, City of Portland's got a deal right now where they're saying, hey, we're getting sued by a group of 10 people over at ADA, meaning they can't get along the sidewalk because we got so many of these, homeless encampment tents populating these areas. These people with disabilities can't get around. We know the payout. We know that what it's going to take to clean up some of these homeless encampments is so large that we're recommending, this is a governmental entity, recommending that they also sue Multnomah County because Multnomah County gave out like 35,000 tents. I might be off 1,000 or 2 on that number. 35,000 tents in 1 year. In 1 year. That is enabling people to live a lifestyle, isn't it? Yeah. There's nothing compassionate about letting people languish on the street, living in squalor, said Andrea. And I've talked with Andrea. I've got interviews with Andrea on this channel. We did kind of an in-depth and, she does a lot of good. And what's so basic is she just goes out and picks up garbage and creates a rapport with people, creates a rapport. And she created a rapport with Lawnmower Man. Now Lawnmower Man's down in Arizona. Maybe it doesn't work out for Lawnmower Man. Maybe Lawnmower Man ends up on the street somewhere else. But at least he's had a little brief time period where he's able to maybe collect his thoughts, get things together, get some help from family members. Does he need meds? I don't know. I don't know anything about his background other than he's able to drive a car and he was a good employee. And, it is what it is. He was living on the streets for whatever his reasons are, but now he's got a chance to be back with his family. Is that going to be the be all and end all? Probably not. It's probably going to take, a bunch of these things happen to people. People on drugs take how many times, oftentimes, to sober up, if they ever do, right? Other organizations, she said, leave homeless people on the street because they are told, don't be assertive. Only ask if they want treatment if they ask you first. And that's not going to work, is it? Somebody that's been cracked out for 10 years? No. They're not just going to wake up one day and go, all right, I've hit rock bottom. I think I'll just get off the juice and, I'm just going to go find the first walk-in clinic I can and get off this stuff. It's time for me to, no. They're not even able to think that way, are they? Since their start, she added, We Heart Seattle volunteers have cleaned up more than 250 tons of trash. It's wild how much garbage they pick up. Given this approach, Dory asked, are you still on the outs with government leaders in what many refer to as homelessness industrial complex? Because there's a whole system set up to keep people homeless, isn't there? And we're watching it. We watch it. Hundreds of millions of dollars are paid into this enormous complex with very little in the way of results. Because, they're not taking an approach that's actually going to have results. They don't really want that. They want to keep this system going. They're getting paid cash money. Housing providers give her volunteers a thumbs up, Suarez said. Despite still being at odds with some government leaders, she said her group is looking forward to its second meeting with King County Executive Dow Constantine's office. All right. So we'll see where that goes. But I think Andrea and her crew have done a great job. And if this story isn't just a tiny little indication of what can be done, I don't know what is. And it didn't take millions of dollars. Give the dude a job, figure out something where he can do, give the dude a job, gets on his feet, gets a little bit of money, figures things out. That's the kind of break people are looking for, not clean needles, not, here you go. Here's a blanket so you don't freeze in 45-degree temperatures in Seattle in winter. I know that sounds weak, doesn't it? Because other areas are like 45 degrees. That's warm. That's balmy. Now we're looking at 10 degrees with a foot of snow. Now, yeah, Seattle doesn't really get that except every now and then. All right, so that is your update on Lawnmower Man. There you go. Now you know. Down in Arizona, probably getting tan. All right, good for Lawnmower Man. Good for Andrea Suarez, and we heart Seattle. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. Talk then. Bye for now.